So I want to get into a little bit of Dave Holden from the Pawtucket Police Department. But before I do, I want to give a little background on his father. And I believe it's his father, When you ask a question, it's not confirmed or denied, but anyway, a few years before Joseph passed away, I was contacted by somebody that knew I did rescue transports. Anyway, I only did legit rescue transports. In fact, I was involved with with Scott Marshall from the DEM in the case of Help Save One, a group that was bringing unvaccinated animals into Rhode Island. Anyway, I'm not going to speak much on that. The girl has since passed away. And I think that it started where she thought she was doing something good, and it ended up to be a very sad situation. But anyway, so I had worked with Scott Marshall and Dr. Finocchio from Rhode Island SPCA. In fact, he didn't step in. I had reached out to the good old doctor over at the Rhode Island SPCA to let him know what was going on with Help Save One. And he didn't get involved until after I got the DEM involved. And anyway, anybody can look that up. I'm sure that the articles are still out there about Help Save One and unvaccinated sick animals coming into the state of Rhode Island. But anyway, after finding out about Help Save One and everything, I looked into and the other options that were out there and what other people were doing in transporting some of these animals out of high kill shelters, and what the requirements were and everything. So I did get involved quite a bit with animal transport, and all with vaccinations and health certificates and everything. Anyway, so my name was out there that, I was willing to help, all under a volunteer basis, to help move these animals out of the high kill shelters and into legitimate rescues. So we have a lot of nice pictures of some of these animals that we were able to help bring to their forever homes. So anyway, so I was contacted by somebody that wanted me to contact an organization in Providence about a dog. So I contact the person, and come to find out it is a director of a women's shelter. And she starts giving me the rundown of a dog that's in Massachusetts that needs to go to the Rhode Island SPCA to be boarded because the woman was the victim of a domestic abuse situation. She was hurt pretty badly. She was seeking shelter in Providence, to stay in the Providence area because her husband was a Massachusetts trooper and had beat the fuck out of her. Anyway, the dog was still in Massachusetts. She couldn't take the dog, but there was like all this connection going on that they had reached out to the Rhode Island SPCA, and Rhode Island SPCA said that they would board the dog for her until she could get on her feet. So, it was all this secretive stuff. Anyway, so I had let them know that I was not opposed to doing it, but because the dog was not coming from a facility where there was a health certificate or anything, and, I had a little bit of a problem with that. So I reached out to the SPCA and I asked them, I said, the laws, with transporting an animal, for me to transport an animal from Massachusetts to Rhode Island, for this purpose, I need some kind of a health certificate or something, some documents, just to make sure that everybody is safe, right? So with doing so, I spoke with Dave Holden at the Rhode Island SPCA, and so we had come up with the fact that she was living here in Rhode Island, the dog was in Massachusetts. If I picked her up and brought her to Massachusetts to get the dog, then I could then turn and come to Rhode Island, to the Rhode Island SPCA, and that would avoid some of the paperwork that not only that I would require for her to have for the animal to be coming into Rhode Island, because I'm totally opposed to, any out-of-state animals coming and causing any harm. So that was my requirement, my values, but also, the state law. So Dave Holden assured me that if I brought her to Massachusetts and got the dog, brought the dog to the Rhode Island SPCA, the dog would go onto quarantine. The dog would be checked by Dr. Finocchio or whatever his name is, and everything would be good. They were very well aware of the situation. They knew that the dog needed to come to Rhode Island because of what had happened in Massachusetts with this woman. And it was all on the down low. It was all on the down low. I'm not saying any names. I'm not saying the organizations. But, I did have conversations with Dave Holden. Now, at that time, I don't know if I even knew that he was, that Dave Holden was involved with that, the dog Tyson from Attleboro, and you can look that one up too. It's a voice for Tyson. Tyson was adopted out of Attleboro. He ended up with a family in Providence. The dog got loose. The organization went looking for him, and they were lied to over and over and over about, no one having the dog. And come to find out, Providence Animal Control had actually had the dog euthanized, and it was laying in the back in their cooler. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But I didn't know that it was the same Dave Holden, or maybe I just didn't put the two and two together. But anyway, so I did that. I picked the woman up at an off-site location, brought her to Massachusetts. We picked up her dog. We brought it to the Rhode Island SPCA, and I sat with Dave Holden that day. And the woman didn't speak much English. I had relayed to him what I could gather from her and what I could gather from the shelter. And, just to confirm everything was on the up and up. So Rhode Island SPCA was going to board this dog. That day, Dave Holden could not thank me enough. Was very appreciative of a citizen stepping forward and volunteering to do such a thing, because they couldn't do it. And, they were just trying to find out how they could do this, on the down low and everything. So that's fine. So I know that, I know that everybody is going to want the video, and there's a lot on that video of my meeting with Holden. Some things that probably, well, let's just go through it. So it was, I believe it was July 10th, 2023. And I had gone to Frank Milos's office with 2 letters from the state medical examiner's office after they had done a deep dive into Joseph's file. And we should thank Katie Hilton for this, because the reason that this all came about, and everybody go there. The reason this all fucking came about was because of Katie Hilton and Craig Letourneau. So that there is no mistake. There is absolutely no fucking mistake on this. As far as I was concerned, things had quieted down with my son's file. And it was only after Kathleen Hilton had submitted that paperwork to the courts with, inaccurate information, that I was like, you know what? I'm fucking done with this. I'm done with, this whole portrayal of what happened, and saying that, I don't believe that they investigated. They didn't fucking investigate anything. They didn't even get our phone numbers correct. But, and I think that everybody at this point should thank Kathleen Hilton, because if it wasn't for her, and I do, because I think that was the final straw to fucking break every fucking camel's back in Iran, because I think that had she not done what she did in the Craig Letourneau case, I wouldn't have those 2 letters. I would not have those 2 letters. So I know we're getting off a little bit on this, but because of Kathleen Hilton and putting lies into Craig Letourneau's case that had nothing to do with me, we were at our breaking point. We were really at our breaking point, realizing that they were going to just continually to use our son's file, like Frank Milos releasing it, and, Kate Peter asking for it, and Kathleen Hilton putting stuff. Yeah, they don't let my kid rest, not for a fucking minute. They don't let my kid rest for not one fucking minute. But anyway, so we can thank Kathleen Hilton, because she was definitely one of, I'm going to say she was the fucking straw. Anyway, so we had the state medical examiner for 1 month. It took them 1 month. Joseph's file was in storage. They had it transferred back to the medical examiner's office, and they did a deep dive. We had the chief medical examiner. We had a whole team that looked at Joseph's file and looked at what was being said, what was done, everything. And they wrote us 2 letters, clearly stating that my son was not coming out gay and distraught over his situation that day. And also, or that they had no proof of that anywhere. And the other part of that was that our family identified, which that never happened. That never fucking happened. Anyway, so you know what? To clear up confusion and to finally, after, all those years of trying to get accurate information, I now had 2 fucking letters in my hand on June 10th, 2023, July 10th, 2023. And I went to Frank Milos's office, and I had those letters in my hand. And I was recording Frank Milos on that date. And we are getting to the Holden. I just need to sidestep for a second here. So I'm videotaping Frank Milos, and he's looking at the letters that I have in my hand that I I am there. I'm showing him that I have 2 letters in my hand. And how can they now deny any of what I've been saying for all these years? So he's staring at the letters and he says to me, you're not going to show me those letters, are you? I said, nope, they're going right over to the Pawtucket Police Department. And he's like, okay. He's like, they're going to share them with me. Of course, because Frank Milos has to be up everybody's ass anyway. He's got to know everything because he's just that fucking creepy. He's like, yeah, you're going to give them to them. They're going to give them to me anyway. But I just wanted to let him know that I now have fucking proof that everything that I have been fucking saying for years is right here. It's right here, Frank. Anyway, but at that point, I did not want Frank to have them. And because they were addressed to me, they were not only just addressed to me, they were sent in a confidential email. They were sent in a confidential email, a sign-in email, of confidentiality and all this. And it was sent from the legal department of the Rhode Island Department of Health. So, with all that aside, I was happy to let him know that the investigation was completed with the Rhode Island Department of Health, and everything that I had been saying was true. Anyway, so that Rafael Perez is nothing but a fucking liar, and he lied to the state medical examiner. Now, this is a guy that still works for the Pawtucket Police Department. If he would lie to a state agency like that, that is a felony. That is a felony. But anyway, so, and in that recording is also where Frank Milos lets me know that any medical records are not for his office to see. That's not something that he would see. He would not see a rescue report because the question, there was a question that was brought up during the investigation as it relates to the rescue report, and I needed to get a copy of it. So I had requested a copy of it from the fire department. And Nicole Lucia, now I guess she's worked there for many fucking years. She said that would be an APRA. And I said, no, it wouldn't. So I called Frank Milos' office and I was like, since when would you be APRAing medical records from the fire department? And they were under the understanding that it was an APRA as well. That a rescue report would then become a public record. Which makes no fucking sense. Makes no fucking sense. Family, yourself, if it's your rescue report, you should be able to obtain it. But as far as being requested through an APRA, Nicole Lucia, dumb as fuck if she thinks that is a thing. And then when you call over to Frank Milos' office to say, why is this happening? Why are they saying it's an APRA? You got dumb fuck Nicole Farias double downing on it that, yeah, that would be an APRA. So in my estimation, that means that they've gotten APRAs for these. Does that make any sense? So anyway, on July 10th, 2023, Frank Milos is like, nope, that's not an APRA, but I'll create a waiver. Now, I don't know. Since the inception of the fire department or them keeping records or whatever, they've never had something that you could just go in and sign in order to obtain this kind of a record. So I had said to him, and it's on the recording, I'll tell you how Michael Field does this, or did it with the Attorney General's office. And basically, the family just acknowledging that this is confidential information and it's only being given to them because they're next of kin. So, Frank didn't want that. He didn't want a simple answer. He didn't want a simple fucking solution. No. So Frank Milos decided, he said that, he wasn't going to go with what Michael Field had said. And it's in writing. It was an email that Michael Field had sent me when I was asking for some stuff. And he was like, no, I'm not going, by what Michael Field, his policy. Now, I mean, Michael Field worked for the biggest law firm in the state, right? The fucking attorney general's office. He didn't want to go by what he said. Frank always has to act like he's smarter than the average bear. So anyway, so I had said, well, do what you got to do. And, because I'm trying to obtain this information. Just as a side note, it was 270 days later that Frank Milos came up with a fucking waiver that made no fucking sense. Basically making it so that I was now responsible for any prints that they have ever printed, of Joseph's medical information, because I was the only one that was signing a waiver. But then when we found the access log of this, it appears that the law department had requested my son's report twice. So I don't know where their waiver is, but we'll get into the whole Trenton South thing and everything later on. But I'm just giving you a brief overview of the meeting with Frank. So it was, it was us with the letters, discussing how a rescue report is not an APRA, and Michael Fields and a waiver. So now we leave Frank's office, and Frank's in a hurry. Frank's in a damn hurry because Frank was dealing with someone's divorce or something. He had private matters that were, at the top of his fucking list. Anyway, so now, he's hurrying us along because he's not spending the day there. He's in dress down clothes or whatever. So now we leave and we meet up with Dave Holden. We meet up with Dave Holden in the court area. So you go through the mayor's office and you go through the little hallway and you're in the court. And Dave Holden says to me, I said, I have 2 letters here from the state medical examiner's office. It's time. Let's get Joseph's report corrected. Let's just put accurate information. What is the big deal? He said, I don't care what you have in your hand. We are never and have never intended to change your son's report. Ain't happening. And I said, I don't know what the big deal is, why you can't have that report contain accurate information. And he says, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. So I had asked him if, I was like, is your father the one over at the Rhode Island SPCA? And then he goes on to tell me about his involvement with the animals and all this stuff. And he goes on to tell me, I said, what is your knowledge of the Turtle Boy sports situation? And he said that, he went too far by sending people to your house. And that other people in the department also felt that he had gone too far by calling Turtle Boy Sports and having them go to my home. But he knew that. Now, they've known that for a long time. They've known that since the day it fucking happened. But James Bano left with a pension, left with his vacation time, sick time, whatever. He left and he went to East Providence. From East Providence, he went down to New Shoreham, where he ended his fucking career, as a police officer for assaulting a prisoner, or somebody in custody, not really a prisoner, but, so anyway, I think that, I think I was pretty fair, with the situation with the dog and helping them out and helping Dave Holden out and doing all that. That took something not my job. It was my job. It was, I volunteered to do it. I don't have any regrets for bringing that woman's dog from Massachusetts into Rhode Island, into the care of Dr. Finocchio or whatever his name is. Dave Holden, Senior or whatever, couldn't thank me enough. Appreciated it. And now I'm standing. Well, I'm not standing because I was in my wheelchair that day. I'm sitting with this man, this guy that is telling me that they never had any intention of changing and putting accurate information into my son's file. Now, if we look back, though, because this video is going to be very telling, when we look back, though, at all the times that Frank Milos has said, oh, go sit with this one, or I haven't had a chance to ask them to change your son's report. I haven't had a chance to discuss that with them. 11 fucking years later, the report still has not been changed. But the good thing is, and I know that, I look at the 11 years and I say, here we are 11 years later, and, the report isn't changed. I can honestly tell you today, I'm glad it's not. Because this is going to court, and this abuse is going to be seen. That they've refused to put accurate information, but they can put bogus information. They can put dates and times of text messages that they fucking pulled out of their ass. So they can make up lies for it, and it's been seen and it's been proven. They can put lies into it, but they can't put accurate information. They can't. And Frank Milos has known all along. All along, he's known. In fact, not only does he know that there's inaccurate information in there, they actually have paper proof as of October 29th, 2014, of the inaccurate information contained in the state medical examiner's office. That these two letters serve now as an amendment to all the fucking bullshit that Rafael Perez said that day. These two letters undo everything that Rafael fucking Perez fucking lied to them about. So, and it's sent by the law department of the Rhode Island Health Department. So anyway, that's a side note. I don't know if you guys can follow what I was just saying. It's really for documented purposes because they're asking for this information, and I'm very willing and able to give it. I'm not typing a lot of stuff out. I am going to verbalize it, and I'm going to put it in the videos because I think that's exactly what they want. They've asked for this information, and I think that at this point, let's not just do it on a small scale, because you're asking for it. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it all to you. I had nothing to hide. Maybe you do, though. All right. Anyway, have the day you deserve.